So, two advantages of recycling. First one is if we recycle metals, then it preserves the resources we have. So here we can say preserves the resources in the earth because we don't have to dig those up. Another thing we can do here is it means that landfill does not fill up because we don't throw the used metal away, we recycle it, therefore landfill doesn't get full of that material. Okay, so next one. We've got an equation here that shows us zinc is reacting with cadmium, and it wants us to explain why this is a displacement reaction. Okay, so to do this, what I'm going to do first of all, I'm going to go through the equation and I'm going to split this into two parts. Let's deal with the cadmium first. So the cadmium is Cd2 plus here, and it forms Cd. So here I'm going to draw an arrow, I'm going to put Cd. Right, how do I get a positive ion to become an atom with no charge? Let's just remind ourselves of that, because here, this is now an ion, it has a charge, and this here is an atom, it doesn't have a charge. So how do I take something that's 2 plus and become no charge? What I do there is I add 2 electrons. Adding 2 electrons, this is gaining electrons. You should be familiar with a phrase called oil rig, which stands for oxidation is loss, reduction is gaining. So because the cadmium ions are gaining electrons, this is an example of reduction. Okay, if we look at the zinc had gone from Zn and it's gone to Zn2 plus. So here I'm going to put Zn to Zn2 plus. How do I go from something that has no charge to something that has a positive charge? Well, what I do here is I'm going to lose electrons. So the electrons sit over here because that zinc forms an ion and there's the electrons that have been lost. Oxidation is loss, so this here is an example of a oxidation reaction. So to get the marks, you can write these equations down. I always suggest you do that. If you've done that and done what we've just done, you're going to get full marks. What I think it's also useful to say is, why is it described as a redox reaction? Because we have got reduction and oxidation happening at the same time. So all they're doing is you take the red and the ox and combine it to do redox. You've got those happening at the same time. And then I would have said, because the cadmium ions are gaining electrons, and then I would say the zinc atoms are losing electrons. Okay, so if you put the equation, you're going to get a mark in that. If you then state that, that line is really important to state that it's happening at the same time. If you don't put the equations in, you can put these two down and that gets you the marks that you would have missed earlier. Okay, carrying on. Work out the formula for this. So all you've got to do here is I use the cross method to work this out. So all I do is CD is 2 plus, so it wants to make 2 bonds, and phosphorus is PO4, 3 minus, because it's 3 minus, it wants to make 3 bonds. The 2 and the 3 don't cancel, so we're going to swap those over. So therefore my cadmium ion gets a 2, and now be careful here because it's PO4, sorry, cadmium ion gets a 3, sorry, PO4, put brackets around it because what's got to come across to it is the number 2. So here I'm going to put a 2 there to show that this number 2 is coming across, and this gets a 3 because the number 3 comes this way. So that is the right formula. Hopefully it matches one of these in here, and it does. It matches option C, correctamundo. Right, one of the alternative methods is doing bioleaching, which is a biological method. Give one disadvantage of this method. So the big thing here, there's two possible things. Number one, it's a slow process. You could just say that and that gets you the mark. The other thing is that toxic chemicals are released into the environment. You wouldn't have to give both. Either of those two is going to be the right answer. Okay, carrying on. Lead is low in reactivity. Describe how you'd get lead from lead oxide in laboratory. Okay, so all you would do here is we would heat the lead oxide with carbon. So we'd mix it with carbon and we would heat it with carbon. There's only 2 marks available. That's going to get you the marks because we're saying we would heat it, and then with what? With carbon. Just to show you what's going on in there, you have got lead oxide. You are going to add carbon to it. Because carbon is more reactive, that is going to form carbon dioxide, and then you get the lead produced separately from that.